initiatives, what you're doing is you are creating releases. So, yes, there is the tool release. It's primarily focused on website of web property of this application, and what are the different things you're going to do for that. So if you see, this is a very structured planning, but at the same time it's very agile, in a way like you are moving through the whole system without losing sight of what you started with. But again, this is a pretty detailed thing. You can do it in Excel as well, but the whole goal being start with a goal, try to be precise, try to prioritize, and then be able to justify what you're doing based on what your analysis was so far. So that's just a discipline. So I also wanted to show that. So the second key discipline in product is, so product management, a discipline, is product design. You will probably hear from a lot of people how you go about doing it. I want to show few approaches. So product design. So when we actually made Libby, this was product design. Very simple. So I created a Pinterest board. These are the ideas we have. I got a few people who I thought were really good at what they did, and just we brainstormed. Look, I want it to look like this, maybe like this, maybe like this. Oh, let's see, let's make some sketches. But the whole idea is you need not be very high tech about it. You don't need Photoshop, right? You can start with. But then from that, we did kind of end up with stickies on features, and it's very low tech approach without any tools, but that's kind of how we designed this thing. And this brought everyone on the same page, because it was very hard for me to tell a guy who's going to help me with laser cut what exactly I want to do. He's like, oh, I don't know, how it's going to fit together. I'm like, let me show you a few pictures, and then I'm sketching it. Then he's like, okay, I get it now. So that's one approach. But again, prototyping, right? So paper you can use for website, for bitters or alcohol. You don't need the product yet. You can you can just create labels the way you want and put it on bottles and see how people feel. So the one thing I want to show you, prototyping, is storyboarding. So it's a discipline, but it is more about you again make a story. So this is what we did for Vivivio before we actually built the website. You've probably seen this many times. So this is a storyboard where we kind of went through the whole scenario. So the user experience designer on my team, we kind of created these, and what we said was, hey, the founder and the entrepreneur really wants to have this idea. Here is their spec. Let's now create screens which somewhat reflect that spec and see if that's something they want to do. So these are, again, they are not, artwork is not done, they are not final, it's just a storyboard, how I'm going to tell this story. So this is kind of, and it's got a script for everything. So this is I'm showing the other end of it. It's a professional tool and how you do it, but you could also do it on paper and pen, right?
Can I just say something? So basically that script was based on what I had literally written down. When people come to the homepage, I want them to be able to do this, and when they click on this, I want them to be able to, this is supposed to happen. And when they do that, and these are the two different users, there's the reviewer and there's the shopper, and da-da-da. And then what they do is just translate that into essentially the storyboard. And what you're seeing, the copy up top is each step, what happens in each scenario. But what he really wants you to just get from this is that you don't have to be a technical person in order to describe what it is you're trying to build, even when it's very complex. They'll figure out on the back end what needs to happen on the back end, but you just still need to be able to articulate what it is you want your user to be able to do. And what he showed you there was no creative involved. There wasn't any skin, we hadn't even gone to design. It's really just a prototype to demonstrate that you can get the actions, the technical part of it done.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and you know, the key thing is, this is, so, you know, many times before, like, because we are so used to like modern technology apps and stuff like that, you know, before big apps come, they have significant large teams, and when you're starting, you're gonna work on a fairly smaller teams, very bootstrapped. So, you know, building all these screens is expensive. Every screen you add, it takes time, right? So what you really want to think again is, you know, yes, my prioritization, right? Like, what are the scenarios I want to prioritize? Do I want the user to, you know, just be able to, you know, click on a review and call first, or I want the user to be able to submit the review at the same time too, right? You know, what's my higher priority? But those things you key out, like when the screens go through, like, oh, you know, is it important for the person who is calling to rate the review right now? Can it come later? Does it kind of look odd in my flow? Things of that nature you can key out, but essentially this is a very detailed exercise for you to like actually live the application, right? So this is a consumer storyboard for review, and then this is, let me see, this was consumer, yeah. So, and this is the reviewer storyboard. So you will see that, you know, this is more about submitting a video, signing it with Facebook, like adding more information, how I'm gonna get paid, so on and so forth. So this one has like tons of screens, right? Because I'm actually submitting and getting paid for a review I put up. So that's storyboard. This helps really shake out a lot of things, and typically, you know, many times this is a very easy way to communicate to someone who's going to code, because, you know, now that we have so much going on in the web properties, there is a very skilled difference in different people what they do. It's very hard to find one person who's going to be able to do all of it. So, you know, there is one person who is very familiar with just doing the front end or the user interface of applications. One person is very familiar in doing like the database or storing the data aspect of it. Even when you're looking at the product design, there is people who specialize in storyboarding, people who specialize in making things look good, like, you know, picking the right color, choosing the right graphic, things of that nature. So that's kind of why you want to go through the exercise to guide everything together. And then the other key thing of product design is, which again could be a separate discipline, is user research, which is more around personas and scenarios. So when we actually wrote it, we never really thought about consumer, right? Like we just said consumer. But when you're actually building the applications, you want to be very specific. What's the demographic of the consumer? It's like, you know, is this like an elite athlete consumer, or is this like, you know, a recreational athlete or a recreational user? So you want to be very specific so that, you know, when your scenarios are being developed and screens are being done, then you are able to kind of zone in on that particular experience and not be very generic, because, you know, for a small company and a startup, no one would like you to be generic. You need to have personality, right? So those all things get keyed out from developing a persona, developing scenarios and things of that nature. So that's number 2 of product, is product design. Again, it's a discipline, and you have to be very conscious about all steps. I'm happy to take questions if you guys have.